The United States is sending more artillery, armoured vehicles and helicopters to Ukraine as the conflict in that country continues. Conflicting statements have been issued from both Russia and Ukraine over the situation on the ground in the city of Mariupol. Moscow claiming its troops have taken the area as Kyiv's defense ministry maintains Ukrainian forces are holding ground. And there has been a further war of words regarding the state of Russia's flagship in the Black Sea. The Moskva missile cruiser, following reports of a fire and an explosion on board. Our correspondent Laura Makin-Isherwood is in Latvia's capital, Riga. She joins us live now. Thank you very much. So it's hard to wade through this with very differing statements from both Russia and Ukraine. What's the latest from your side?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's very difficult to verify the information that's coming out from Ukraine and from Russia as well, because as you say, both sides have differing accounts of what might have happened here. But the latest from the Pentagon's press secretary, John Kirby, he said that this missile cruiser, the Moskva, is actually afloat at the moment and it's managed to get to Sevastopol on its own engines, where it may be getting repairs. But the US has no details, it says, on how this explosion on this flagship occurred. We heard earlier reports from Ukrainian Forces that they said 2 of their missiles had struck the ship. That caused an explosion and evacuation of the crew. But Russia denied that was the case, instead saying there was a fire on board, and that fire then caught onto ammunition that was on the ship, and that was what caused the explosion. So both sides trying to claim their own version of events there. Now, of course, that ship was in the Black Sea as part of a blockade, trying to use it as a strategic area of advantage for Russia, trying to cut off the south of Ukraine from trade routes, maritime access, and effectively stop those cities there having access to things like food and water, and of course for the forces on the ground there being able to be resupplied. So those ships are there for a very strategic reason, and this situation where the flagship has at least been damaged by, we don't know how exactly, but the fact that it is now being taken back to a port for repairs will be a dent in the morale for the Russian forces.
All right, thank you for that update. Warnings too about, about Finland and Sweden's chances or plans to join NATO. The Kremlin saying that they would be classed as opponents, and it even appears to be threatening nuclear escalation. Just remind us why this is causing such a strong reaction from Russia.
Well, until now, Sweden and Finland have been seen as relatively neutral countries when it comes to sort of sides of Russia and NATO. And one of the reasons that Russia gave for invading Ukraine was the fact that it saw NATO as looking to expand, and that Vladimir Putin saw as a threat, essentially, on Russian sovereignty and on the country itself. Well, now the deputy chairman of Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, has said there can be no more talk of any nuclear-free status of the Baltic states should Finland and Sweden join NATO. They're seeing that as effectively an act of aggression, or they're going to try to say that it is an act of aggression, and they're warning that there could be an escalation if that happens. Now, the citizens of Finland and Sweden seem to be moving towards this perception that they do want to join NATO. We've heard from the governments that they may put their bids in over the next few months to join the alliance, something that's happened very quickly, that change in stance. And Russia clearly does not like that idea. And so consequently, there are these warnings being issued, a lot of bold statements being made, perhaps an attempt by Moscow to put off those nations from doing that. Because if the NATO alliance does expand, that means that there are more countries joining together in this show of unity, if you like, and an attack on one NATO nation is an attack on all. And the Kremlin will not like that at all.
All right, thank you very much. Our correspondent Laura Makin-Isherwood in Latvia's capital, Riga.